Yeah, yeah, yeah. So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She reporting the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion straight from the chest, not a bit accomplice or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping cause they lack the knowledge. They don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like. Wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these blogs running lies because their agendas are disguised. Tune in to the intellect, cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is gifting. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Pam Esquire, also known as your Law Intellect. I have to begin the show by thanking Darlene Burrell for the super chat. That was so kind of you. You said support for your hard work. I appreciate the support. And if the rest of you all could please hit the like button on your way in, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. I am going to talk about the civil lawsuit that has been filed against a group of people. There are a lot of individuals in this complaint, and it is brought by the estate of Angie Stone and her surviving children. And there was actually another lady who is currently still in the hospital from that accident who we haven't heard from or heard about, rather. So if this is the facts are terrible. So I am giving my trigger warning for anybody that is coming on here, but I did want to go over the full lawsuit. We didn't really talk too much about the incident. It happened on March 1st of 2025. It was very shocking to everyone. And I think we all wanted to believe that it was just one of the hoax that we see all over the internet. Unfortunately, it was not a hoax, and it was the truth that Angie Stone, who had just done some lives, and she also relayed to us that she has to work after all of these years and all the work that she had put in because she had issues with receiving her royalties, and it sounded like she may have been in the process of potentially bringing in some litigation or bringing some action against those individuals she claims kept her from getting her royalties. We heard a lot of information on the internet when this accident happened. I can personally recall on TikTok, there was a woman who alleged that she was at the scene, and it was a few people that had little video clips, but it was a woman that was at the scene who alleged that she was there and she helped Angie get out of the vehicle, out of the Sprinter, and that they were on the side of the road. And there was an assumption, at least for me, that perhaps she ended up being unalived by a semi truck that came by after she was already out of the vehicle. Well, when you read the entirety of the complaint, that is not the exact facts. I know that the young lady was asked to take that down, from my understanding. Well, I'm not going to say I know because I don't know any of these people. But from what I've heard, it's hearsay. She was asked to take that down. And so the lawsuit was filed the other day, as it should have been. I mean, there are claims against the driver. I did a live earlier and I wasn't sure. I thought the driver wasn't in the lawsuit, but he is like towards the bottom of the lawsuit. So he was. So the driver of the Sprinter was sued. You had the truck drive, the individual companies related to that Sprinter, they were sued. And the semi truck and that driver was sued as well. Very, very tragic. I do have the entire lawsuit. We're going to go over as much as we can because it is quite lengthy. And some of it we don't necessarily need to go over. We'll go over and make sure we know each of the claims, but it's very, very interesting, and it gives us an insight into what actually happened. So this would be months after these attorneys. They probably got an accident reconstructionist. They probably got the devices within the semi truck, such as Qualcomms or different devices that tell you the speed last time you took a break, last time you were asleep. All of that stuff is important because you can only drive for so long, and you're supposed to, by law, take a break. All of that is important when it comes to trucking cases to figure out what went on. I'm sure driver's records were pulled. I'm sure you're supposed to, when you get into an accident as a truck driver, automatically go to the hospital and get testing, from my understanding, like alcohol testing or drug testing. So it's a lot that goes into it. So I'm not shocked that it took 6 months for them to figure out what they believe actually happened. And that's what is in this lawsuit. Again, these are allegations. They will go through the process, as we talk about all the time, of discovery. And in that discovery, they'll have subpoena power, and they'll probably get way more information. But as of now, these are the facts as they know it. And we are going to definitely go over this lawsuit. But I'm going to speak to a few of you guys before I get started. Annette O said, yes, a drug test. Bam Girl 012 said, hi, Pam. Hey, good to see you. Golden, good to see you. For always, forever. Thank you so much for always coming and supporting and being great mod. It's the Rocks. Hey, Pam and Intellect. Yeah, I think we all just, I don't know. I wanted to wait, honestly, till the facts came out because it was all over the place. You know, there were the conspiracy theorists about very coincidental that she got into this accident after she came out discussing the record labels. That's kind of what we do. We come out and we won't. I think with a lot of people, when you lose anybody that you care about, you want an explanation. You really don't want to believe that it may just have been somebody was negligent and this is what happened. I think we're almost programmed to equate everything to some type of event that has some type of nefarious undertone. So this lawsuit, according to the facts that they have gathered over the months, should put some of that to rest. Some people are just going to feel how they feel and they don't want to believe it, just like people are still seeing Tupac over there in Puerto Rico. I mean, that's just Elvis. This is the longest I've heard of them not discussing Elvis, but my whole childhood Elvis was all the conspiracies on that. So this is kind of what happens with our greats. And I would venture to say that she would go down in history as one of our greats as well. She was on R&B Divas, for those that watched that show, and she had some health challenges. Remember when all of this happened, she apparently had some conversations with Al Shore, who thought it was proper and appropriate for him to let us know that she had some health struggles beyond what she told us about and may have needed some type of transplant or something, and he put it out there. I don't know what the purpose. You know, everybody want to be connected to somebody, let them know we had a relationship, we knew each other. But it just got so messy. Honestly, I was like, well, I'll just wait till some documents get filed. And so that is what we are going to go over on today. Thank you, Just Ask Char, for being a member for 15 months. I appreciate that. Good to see you, Tracy. Mom's the boss. Blessed and favored, Bossy 21. Thank you guys so much. We did a membership live earlier. It was very unserious. Okay, that's what I'm going to label it. It was very unserious. I called David E. Taylor's hotline so that I can get some prayer. Well, I got prayer in my alias name, but I just wanted to see if the hotline was still open. Okay. And the lady decided to spill some tea in the middle of the prayer and let me know that they under attack and they leader. And if I see anything on the internet about David E. Taylor, not to believe it, that he is under attack, but they're still answering these phones 24 hours and they're trying to pray because this is the kingdom. So then I asked the lady, I said, ma'am, who's going to preach on Sunday? I said, are you guys still having service on Sunday? She said, oh, yeah, we're still having service. You can watch us online. I said, well, who's going to be preaching? You know, if your leader is, you know, a little preoccupied right now, unavailable, who's going to be preaching? She was like, preacher, it's the kingdom. Ma'am, when she said that, I almost fell out. What are you even saying, ma'am? Like, what are we talking about? It was just crazy. It was off cuff. We were watching a video of Vicky Yohe spilling her guts, and they had the number flash across. So y'all know me. I'm just random. And I decided to call. And I didn't think they were going to answer, so I wasn't as prepared as I wish I was, because I would have asked for prayer for Nesto. Like, I'd have like asked, you know, can you pray for Ernest Williams? He's wrongfully accused or whatever. Like, I would have done that. But it kind of threw me off guard, so I'd have come up with some stuff. But yeah, it was very, very interesting and random. But y'all know me, I'm just random. So if you're a member, you can go over there and watch the shenanigans in the video of when I called the 1-800 hotline for the prayer line. Lady was praying. She sounded like she was from India, or I don't know. She sounded like a foreigner. And she was praying heaven down. Okay, that's what she thought she was doing for Susan Brown. That's what she was doing. She told me, don't believe the hype. I even bring it up. I just was calling, you know, I wasn't going to bring up, like, is it true that your beloved leader is indicted? I didn't even do that. She just decided to talk and tell me about it. It was like, because she kind of figured, I guess she was like, well, if you decide you're going to click on the church, then 9 times out of 10, she's going to see all these headlines because he all over them. Then she said Jesus was persecuted. I said, no, she's not comparing him to Jesus. So it almost emboldened them to feel like, oh, he's the real deal. Now he got the government coming against him, which is what they did to Jesus. This is how they're equating this. Not the fact that y'all hungry for a sandwich. You can't afford to buy yourself any underclothes. You don't even see any of that. You literally are like, our leader is being persecuted right now, just like they did Jesus, and it's emboldening them. Okay? So, if you are a member, go there and watch that video. We was talking about David E. Taylor all randomly. We talked about Angie Stone a little bit in the beginning, but I hadn't really read it, and I kind of glanced more, so some of the information I gave about Angie Stone wasn't accurate because I hadn't really read it. But we're gonna go over this. Yeah, she said it's the kingdom, Queen Bria. I said, well, who's preaching? She said, oh, we don't do regular church. It's the kingdom. I was like, okay, well, who's giving a word? Ain't nobody giving a word on Sunday. She was like, she said something about they are in decency and in order, and they have other leaders in the church that are prepared to do what they have to do because the kingdom has to go forward, because this is the kingdom. The kingdom. You know that, right? That this is the kingdom of God. This ain't your only ordinary church. Then she just randomly brought up homosexuals. It was just, you gotta go see it for yourself. But anyways, let's get into Angie Stone before we get too far off to the right on what happened earlier. So this is the lawsuit with Angie Stone. Hold on, let me put a banner up. Let me see if I got one for her. I got, yeah. Let me throw that up because I don't know. Yeah, they special over there at the whatever the name of his. I don't think it's Joshua Ministries anymore. It's something else, but. So this is Angie Stone has filed. It's Diamond Stone, which is the daughter, Michael D'Angelo Archer II. So that's D'Angelo's son. The surviving children of Angela Laverne Angie Stone, deceased, and Michael D'Angelo Archer II as administrator of the estate of Angela Laverne Stone, deceased, and Sheila Hopkins. So Sheila Hopkins is another one that's on here that was injured that we have not heard about. And they are suing CRST Expedited Inc., doing business as CRST, the Transportation Solutions Inc., Jarrett Wilkinson, Daimler Truck North America LLC, Detroit Diesel Corporation. Yep, Detroit then got up in here too. One of the products from Detroit is up in here too for product liability. Lethal Carter, Joseph L. Robinson, Good to Go Cafe LLC, and Executive Elite Transportation LLC. Plaintiffs hereby filed this complaint demanding a jury trial and show this honorable court the following. Again, these are just allegations. They have to be hashed out in court, but this is as the plaintiffs see the facts of this case. In the early morning hours of March 1st, 2025, Grammy-nominated R&B singer Angela Laverne, Angie Stone, and a group of her bandmates and family members, including Sheila Hopkins, were traveling through Montgomery County, Alabama, after leaving a performance the night before in Mobile, Alabama. Angie's group was riding in a 2021 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van owned by the defendant, Good to Go Cafe LLC, Executive Elite Transportation LLC, or Joseph L. Robinson, and driven by defendant Lethal Carter, who had been hired to transport Angie and her group from Atlanta, Georgia, to the performance in Mobile and then back to Atlanta. While traveling north on I-65, defendant Carter lost control of the Sprinter van, causing the van to exit the roadway to the left. As defendant Carter attempted to steer the Sprinter van back to the right and into the interstate, the Sprinter van overturned into its driver's side and came to rest in the left lane of I-65 North. The right lane of I-65 North was open and not obstructed by the disabled Sprinter van. Angie Stone and Sheila Hopkins, who were both properly belted in rear-facing seats behind the front driver and passenger seats, survived the initial collision without serious injury, as did the other occupants of the Sprinter van. So they're alleging the original alleged negligence of the driver that caused the Sprinter to flip. They weren't injured, and they were barely injured or weren't seriously injured, and they survived that. During the next several minutes, all of the passengers, including Angie Stone and Sheila Hopkins, attempted to get out of the overturned Sprinter van. During this time, the headlights, taillights, and running lights on the Sprinter van remained on. So that's important because that means it was illuminated, and if you were a driver, you should have seen lights. Because they were paying proper attention to the roadway in front of them and not driving too fast for the conditions, several other motorists traveling northbound on I-65 saw the overturned Sprinter van and safely drove their vehicles around it in the open right lane. Other motorists paying proper attention to the roadway also saw the overturned Sprinter van put over to the right shoulder of the interstate and put their four-way flashers on. With the help of these good Samaritans, 5 of the 9 occupants were able to exit the Sprinter van. At around 4:25 a.m., a large CRST tractor trailer driven by defendant Jared Wilkinson was proceeding in the left fast lane of travel on I-65 North. Defendant Wilkinson was on his way to deliver a load of sugar to Forest Park, Georgia. The CRST tractor Wilkinson was driving was a 2021 Freightliner equipped with Detroit Assurance 5.0, a collision mitigation system designed, manufactured, marketed, and sold by defendants Daimler Truck North America LLC and Detroit Diesel Corporation. The Detroit Assurance 5.0 collision mitigation system is marketed and advertised as a system that will warn tractor trailer drivers of moving and stationary objects in the roadway, partially brake the tractor trailer, and then fully brake the tractor trailer if the driver does not respond. So it's supposed to be some type of automatic system that should have been pressing that brake. Because defendant Wilkinson was not paying proper attention to the roadway ahead of him, and because the Detroit Assurance 5.0 collision mitigation system did not warn Wilkinson of the disabled Sprinter van or automatically brake the CRST tractor trailer, Wilkinson slammed the front of the CRST tractor trailer into the disabled Sprinter van at highway speed without ever applying the brakes. So it wasn't even a lesser amount of speed because he never applied the brakes. At the time, the CRST tractor trailer slammed into the overturned Sprinter van. Both Angie Stone and Sheila Hopkins were still inside and trying to get out of the van. The force of the impact was extremely severe. As a result of the collision, Angie Stone was ejected from and pinned under the Sprinter van. Angie Stone remained trapped underneath the van, where she consciously suffered until she ultimately succumbed to the fatal injury she sustained in the collision and died. So that's the introduction. And it sounds very horrible and painful. So she died a slow, painful death, according to this lawsuit. So, of course, we got Michael D'Angelo Archer II, who is appointed the administrator of the estate. Diamond Stone is the child of Angie Stone. We have Sheila Hopkins. She's a part of this lawsuit. Defendant CRST, the Transportation Solution, they are the ones of the tractor trailer. Jared Wilkinson. We got Daimler. I said all the names. Detroit Diesel over there down the street on Outer Drive. I'm like, oh, Lord. We have Lethal Carter. That was the person who actually was driving the Sprinter. Joseph Robinson and Good to Go Cafe LLC. They were a part of the Sprinter, of ownership of the Sprinter, according to this. Executive Elite Transportation. I'm assuming they were up under that Good to Go. And that's it. So those are the individuals that are involved in this lawsuit. So everybody getting sued, all right? Pretty much everybody is getting sued. All right, so let's get into the operative facts, which similar to the introduction, but gives a bit more details. During the early morning hours of March 1st, 2025, Angie Stone, Sheila Hopkins, and a group of Angie's bandmates and family members were driving through Montgomery County, Alabama, traveling back to Atlanta, Georgia from a musical performance in Mobile, Alabama. Angie and Sheila were properly belted passengers in the 2021 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van heading north on I-65. The Sprinter van was owned by defendant Good to Go, Executive Elite, or Robinson, and driven by defendant Lethal Carter, who was hired to transport Angie's group from Atlanta to Mobile and then back to Atlanta. While traveling north on I-65, defendant Carter lost control of the Sprinter van, causing the van to exit the roadway to the left. As defendant Carter attempted to steer the Sprinter van back to the right and onto the interstate, the Sprinter van overturned onto its driver's side and came to rest on the left lane of I-65. Hold on. Excuse me. You know I got to yell at Danielle at least one time on the live. The right lane of I-65 North was open and was not obstructed by the disabled Sprinter van. So they're letting you know that there was a space for people to go by as long as they were paying attention. Angie Stone and Sheila Hopkins, who were both properly belted in rear-facing seats behind the front driver and passenger seats, survived the initial collision without serious injury, as did the other occupants of the Sprinter van. The van's headlights, taillights, and running lights remained on and visible. All 9 occupants of the Sprinter van, including Angie Stone and Sheila Hopkins, were alive and conscious following the Sprinter van wreck and began trying to exit the disabled van. Because they were paying proper attention to the roadway in front of them and not driving too fast for the condition, several other motorists traveling northbound on I-65 saw the overturned Sprinter van and safely drove their vehicle around it in the open right lane. Other motorists paying proper attention also saw the overturned Sprinter van pulled over to the right shoulder of the interstate and put their 4-way flashers on. So everybody's saying it but you, Mr. Truck Driver, is what they're saying. With the help of the Good Samaritans, 5 of the 9 occupants were able to exit the Sprinter van. At around 4:25 a.m., a large CRST tractor trailer driven by defendant Jared Wilkinson was proceeding in the left fast lane of travel on I-65 North. Defendant Wilkinson was on his way to deliver a load of sugar to Forest Park, Georgia. The tractor trailer defendant Wilkinson was driving was owned, operated, maintained, repaired, and controlled by the defendant CRST and was driven pursuant to CRST's DOT number and motor carrier authority. Defendant Wilkinson was listening to music while driving using a pair of headphones. The weather at the time of the subject collision was clear and did not contribute to causing the subject collision. The roadway where the collision occurred is straight and flat, such that the overturned Sprinter van was visible to other motorists, including defendant Wilkinson. The 2021 Freightliner Cascadia, owned by CRST and driven by defendant Wilkinson, was equipped with Detroit Assurance 5.0, a collision mitigation system designed, tested, manufactured, distributed, promoted, advertised, and marketed by defendant Daimler and Detroit Diesel. Detroit Assurance 5.0, as designed, manufactured, marketed, and advertised, includes active brake assistance, ABA5, which is supposed to use radar and camera technology to monitor the road, including stationary objects in the road like disabled vehicles, and provide audible and visual warnings to the driver. And if the driver does not respond, automatically apply partial or full braking to avoid or mitigate potential collisions. Prior to striking the disabled Sprinter van, the Detroit Assurance 5.0 collision mitigation system did not issue an audible or visual warning to defendant Wilkinson and did not apply any automatic partial or full braking to avoid or mitigate the collision. Because defendant Wilkinson was not paying proper attention to the roadway ahead of him, Wilkinson slammed the front of the CRST tractor trailer into the disabled Sprinter van at highway speed without ever applying the brakes. Defendant Wilkinson was not paying proper attention to the roadway when he negligently crashed the large CRST tractor trailer into the disabled Sprinter van. The brakes on the CRST tractor trailer were never applied by Wilkinson or the Detroit Assurance 5.0 collision mitigation system, and the tractor trailer was going nearly 70 miles per hour upon impact with the Sprinter van. This just gets worse and worse. The impact of the CRST tractor trailer hitting the Sprinter van was extremely severe. As a result of the collision, Angie Stone was ejected from the Sprinter van and pinned under the van. Angie Stone remained trapped underneath the van, where she consciously suffered until she succumbed to the fatal injuries she sustained as a result of the Sprinter van being struck by the CRST tractor trailer. Plaintiff Sheila Hopkins remained trapped inside the Sprinter van as it was catapulted into the air and slammed back down into the roadway. Ms. Hopkins miraculously survived the collision but suffered injuries for which she was immediately treated at Baptist South Hospital in Montgomery, Alabama, and for which she is still being treated. Defendant CRST selected listed specifications for, owned, maintained, repaired, and controlled the 2021 Freightliner Cascadia driven by defendant Wilkinson. Defendant CRST negligently and recklessly permitted his tractor trailer to be driven by defendant Wilkinson on the morning of the collision. Defendant CRST negligently trained, qualified, screen hired, selected, dispatched, and supervised defendant Wilkinson. At the time of the subject collision, defendant Wilkinson was driving the CRST tractor to Georgia to make a delivery in Forest Park, Georgia. At the time of the subject collision, defendant Wilkinson was an employee and or agent of CRST and was operating the subject tractor trailer in the scope of his employment and or agency with CRST and in furtherance of CRST's business. Defendant Wilkinson was following too closely, distracted, fatigued, not paying proper attention to the roadway, and or driving too fast for conditions at and around the time of the subject collision. The Detroit Assurance 5.0 collision mitigation system did not warn defendant Wilkinson of the overturned Sprinter van, automatically brake the tractor trailer, or perform as it was marketed and advertised. The fatal wreck was caused by the negligent and or reckless acts and or omissions of the defendants, either alone or in conjunction with one another. The wreck was foreseeable to the defendants and could have been avoided had the defendants acted in safe and prudent manner as required by law and in accordance with the applicable standards. The collision was directly and proximately caused by the actions and negligence of the defendants, either alone or in conjunction with one another. Angie Stone was a totally innocent victim who in no way contributed to causing the wreck or the fatal injury she sustained. Sheila Hopkins was a totally innocent victim who in no way contributed to causing the wreck or the serious injury she sustained. No non-party contributed to causing the subject collision. So there's nobody else. They're saying there's no empty chair that you can try to say it was them. It was them and not us. That's what I was thinking if they didn't sue the driver of the Sprinter, because I wasn't seeing that kind of in the headlines at first. But yeah, they sued everybody as they should. So those are the facts. We'll get into the liability in a minute. Vintage 1970 said, my niece passed pinned under an overturned vehicle in a water-filled ditch. Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry to hear that. You said he's done. That's from Danny IRL. Houston Love said the truck driver did not cause the accident, people. They are only included because they have policy. Trust me, they have cameras. They did not cause, but so what they're trying to say is there's almost an intervening superseding cause. So they made it clear that the truck, okay, so the Sprinter van was overturned. People were passing by. They had the lights, you know, the little, y'all know what I'm talking about, the emergency fire sticks that they have out there, the little lights out there to tell you. People even pulled over to help them. So everybody saw this, but this truck, if the truck was paying attention, then the truck is higher up and they're saying they could have saw it. So even though there was an original accident, and obviously they're alleging he was negligent by causing it, but for him doing it, obviously she wouldn't have been in this situation. However, once the situation happened, we all have a duty as drivers to pay attention to what's going on around us. And they're saying he didn't pay attention. Plus, there was some type of mitigating system that's manufactured here in Detroit where it's supposed to alert you and say, object in the street ahead. Object in the street ahead. Slow down. Apply the brakes. And apparently, if you don't apply the brakes or slow down, then they're supposed to brake for you. So I'm going to assume when this guy gave his statement or whatever information he gave, he probably told him the system never triggered. He never saw it, but clearly he told him he was on some headphones and listening to music. So they probably got him almost immediately after this accident where he wasn't thinking about, I'm going to get sued and he just really was like an excited utterance and said exactly what was going on and everything that was going on. So that's probably where they got that from. So yes, I agree with you to the extent that the companies, the trucking companies, is where the real policies are at. That I do agree with you. However, I don't agree that they're not liable for anything, because they may be liable for negligence, because they should have paid attention to what was going on around them, is what they're alleging. Is it going to be a toughie? It may be, because they're going to all point the fingers at each other. However, somebody is probably going to pay. So yeah. Yes, according to this lawsuit, she was still alive before the truck hit her. So she was, maybe they was trying to help people get out one by one. They got 5 out of the 9 people up out of that truck, but Angie Stone and her sister or relative, I don't know who she was, but it sounds like a relative. They were the ones that were still left in that Sprinter van. And so when the semi truck came, it crashed right into the Sprinter. And then there was another catapulting in the air. And what it sounds like to me by what they're saying is that this just sounds so horrible. The Sprinter catapulted in the air. Angie flew out the window, was ejected, went on the ground, and then it sounds like it might have came down on her. So she was pinned under the Sprinter. The other person, Sheila Hopkins, who was on here, it looks like, according to what they're saying, that she never was ejected out of the van, so she was still in there. So she survived the initial impact coming up and coming down. With Angie Stone, she's trapped up under this vehicle, and she had conscious pain and suffering, which means it wasn't a peaceful situation. It wasn't they died in their sleep, they were able to get morphine. No, she felt every nook, cranny, and pain. And she died slowly in that pain until she died. And it sounds like before she got to the hospital, she died on the scene. So she felt all of that, is what they're saying. So Sheila's Angie's cousin. Okay. It's awful. It sounds, y'all need to just pay. They shouldn't even have to file this lawsuit. You guys should have just paid. You got policies for things such as this. You probably should have just paid and figured it out. But they're probably pointing fingers on who is the most liable, who is the most negligent. So when you look at continuously looking at the lawsuits, let me pull it up right quick again. I just wanted to briefly summarize what they're alleging the facts were. So for those of us that were wondering what were the facts, so against defendant Jared Wilkinson, they're saying defendant Wilkinson had a duty to operate the tractor trailer. He was driving in a safe and prudent manner so as to not to endanger the lives and welfare of Angie Stone, Sheila Hopkins, and the motoring public. This duty included keeping a proper lookout while driving, paying proper attention, moving over and yielding to disabled vehicles, and operating the tractor trailer prudently in accordance with the conditions of the roadway and all traffic laws and regulation. As a commercial truck driver, Wilkinson also had a duty to operate the tractor trailer in conformance with the state and federal motor carrier safety regulations and the industry and corporate standards arising out of these regulations, including but not limited to the required skills and knowledge set forth in 49 CFR sections 390 through 396. So they're saying Wilkinson breached these duties and is liable for his tortious acts and omissions, which include but are not limited to. So this is what they got so far, but they might add to it later on, depending on what the facts bring. Violating pertinent rules of the roads, with such violations amounting to negligence per se. The pertinent violations include but are not limited to the following: failing to operate his vehicle with due care and caution, operating the tractor trailer carelessly and heedlessly in willful or wanton disregard for the rights or safety of persons or property, following too closely and failing to yield to other vehicles, including the disabled Sprinter van, driving too fast, and at a speed greater than was reasonable and prudent under the conditions, failing to move over and go around a disabled vehicle, failing to operate the tractor trailer in accordance with the laws, ordinance, and regulations of the jurisdiction in which it was operated in violation of 49 CFR section 392.2 and other laws and regulations, unlawfully and negligently operating a commercial motor vehicle while distracted and or fatigued in violation of the state and federal law and safety regulations, including but not limited 49 CFR section 392.3. Like I said before, there are different rules, or additional rules, I should say, when it comes to driving a truck and a tractor trailer. And part of that is they are supposed to only drive on the road for a certain amount of hours. So I'm sure they checked their logs on how long he had even been driving before this happened. They're alleging fatigue in here. It may just be they're throwing it in there just in case. I don't know if that was part of their investigation, if they seen the logs. A lot of the stuff with trucking is you can get it just like how phone calls from prison gets the FOIA records. You can get trucking records. How many accidents people had that drive the trucks, how many times the truck has been in an accident. A lot of that is public record that you can get without filing a lawsuit and having to subpoena it. So they could have gotten this information. I don't know. Violating certain other rules of the federal motor carrier safety regulations, failing to operate the tractor trailer in a safe and prudent manner, thereby placing the lives and well-being of the public in general, and Angie Stone and Sheila Hopkins in particular danger, failing to keep a proper lookout or pay attention to the roadways, failing to use ordinary care under the circumstances, operating the large tractor trailer too fast, operating tractor trailer despite knowing it was in unsafe conditions, failing to use and or possess the knowledge and skills necessary to operate the motor vehicle safely, failing to use proper visual search methods while operating a commercial motor vehicle as required under the law, failing to use proper space management techniques as required under federal motor carrier safety regulations and or industry standards, failing to use proper hazard perceptions techniques as required, failing to take reasonable evasive actions to stop and or avoid the subject collision, failing to inspect and or operate the tractor trailer in compliance with the state and federal law, and other acts of negligence to be revealed during discovery. So then, of course, as a direct and proximate cause, you had Sheila Hopkins suffered losses and injuries, and we had, because of, as a proximate cause of the negligence, Angie Stone succumbed to her injuries and she died. Count 2 is defendant CRT's negligence. So that is the owner of the tractor trailer, and they're doing it under respondent superior, because that was your employee and your servant when this happened. So they're talking about how they negligently hired them, trained them, supervised, retained, qualified, dispatched, and trusted them. So that's the gist of respondent superior. Then they were negligent as well. They're going to say for not making sure that the truck was in proper working conditions. They hadn't repaired the safety systems, because allegedly the safety systems didn't work. And as a breach and proximate cause, you had Miss Hopkins was severely injured, and you had Angie Stone, who suffered the losses and injuries noted and consciously suffered physical and mental pain and ultimately died. Count 3, strict product liability. That's going to be against Daimler. Okay, that's going to be against Daimler, who created this system I was supposed to do this morning. Daimler had a duty to exercise due care in the design, manufacture, assembly, distribution, and sale of the subject 2021 Freightliner Cascadia, and to ensure that the subject 2021 Freightliner that it placed in the stream of commerce met the reasonable expectations of ordinary consumers and was safe for use by its intended users and those persons who may foreseeably come into close proximity to it, including others on the public roadway, such as Angie Stone. So they're coming after them for manufacturing the truck that was unsafe. Daimler breached its duties, which caused plaintiffs injuries and damages at the time of the design, manufacture, distribution, delivery into the stream of commerce, and or sale of 2021 Freightliner Cascadia. It lacked a properly designed system for crash avoidance. The subject 2021 Freightliner was defective and unreasonably dangerous at the time it was designed, manufactured, assembled, sold, distributed, marketed, promoted, placed in the stream of commerce and marketplace, and allowed to be used. At the time Daimler placed the 2021 Freightliner Cascadia into the stream of commerce, Daimler knew or should have known that this Freightliner's collision mitigation safety system would not properly and safely warn drivers or avoid or mitigate collision with other vehicles like the Sprinter van it collided with on March 1st, 2025. At all relevant times and prior to the subject collision, Daimler knew its 2021 Freightliner Cascadia posted a significant risk of injury and death to roadway users, but failed to warn about those dangers or make appropriate changes to remedy the defective nature of the product. The 2021 Freightliner defective safety system included the Detroit Assurance 5.0 collision mitigation system with active brake assistance, which is advertised and supposed to utilize radar and camera technology to monitor the road and automatically warn the driver and or apply partial or full braking to avoid or mitigate collision. Defendant Daimler placed the 2021 Freightliner Cascadia equipped with the Detroit Assurance 5.0, including ABA5, into the stream of commerce. ABA5 is promoted and advertised by Daimler as providing audio and visual warning as well as full braking on moving and stationary vehicle. So this is what they got from the website, that the active brake assist mitigates potential collision by calculating truck speed and distance to other vehicles. This determines if a warning or braking action is needed. Full braking on moving pedestrians. It can detect a person who is about to walk into the truck's path. It issues audio and visual warnings with simultaneous partial braking first, followed by full braking if the driver does not react. Full braking on moving and stationary vehicles. It can identify moving or stationary vehicles in the truck's path. When the system detects a potential obstacle, it issues audio and visual warning. Depending on the situation, partial and full braking may activate as well. So that depending on the situation is going to be what they're going to be arguing with, that depending on the situation, why the partial and full braking may activate as well. At the time the defendant Daimler placed the 2021 Freightliner equipped with the Detroit Assurance 5.0 into the stream of commerce, Daimler knew or should have known that the subject Freightliner safety system was defective and unreasonably dangerous for its intended or reasonable foreseeable use and would not properly and safely avoid collision with vehicles and other objects like the disabled Sprinter van by issuing audio and visual warning or activating the brakes. So they're saying it was defective. And of course, because of that, along with the acts and omissions of the other defendants, proximately caused Angie Stones' death and the injuries and damages to plaintiffs. Defendant Daimler acted with reckless disregard for the safety and well-being of the public and acted willfully and wantonly in designing, testing, manufacturing, inspecting, marketing, distributing, selling, monitoring, and failing to effectively recall or repair the subject 2021 Freightliner Cascadia's safety system, including the Detroit Assurance 5.0 and or ABA 5. Such conduct warrants the imposition of punitive damages against the Daimler. So they saying we need a deterrent amount. As a direct and proximate cause for breaching these duties, Angie Stones suffered the losses and injuries, consciously suffered physical and mental pain, and ultimately died. And as a direct and proximate result of the foregoing breaches, Sheila Hopkins suffered the losses and injuries herein. Okay, so there's that. This is. So wait, there was a system apparently there was a system that didn't work. So I'm going to assume based on this, again, these are allegations, that the truck that was created by Daimler, built by Daimler Chrysler and assembled by Daimler Chrysler, it came with this system that was built by another company, but they used that system within this tractor trailer truck. No, this was in Alabama. It was not in Michigan. The truck just the system was created from a company in Michigan. Very heartbreaking. Then they also have, so they done pulled out every cause of action that they can find. Okay. I don't know. I don't know all the facts behind it, why they didn't just try to settle it. But hey, count 4 is failure to warn as to the defendant Daimler. At all times material here too, including March 1st, Daimler was engaged in the business of designing, testing, manufacturing, distributing, promoting, advertising, monitoring, and marketing the 2021 Freightliner Cascadia and Detroit Assurance 5.0 collision mitigation system that was installed on the subject Freightliner owned by defendant CRST and driven by defendant Wilkinson. At the time, the Freightliner and Detroit Assurance 5.0 collision mitigation system left defendant Daimler's control and entered the stream of commerce. It was defective and unreasonably dangerous due to defendant's failure to provide adequate warnings or instructions regarding the foreseeable risk of harm associated with its use. So they're saying they should have shown, you know how you have those commercials that says, I feel so much better. I feel 21 again since I was able to get this ABC medication. I suffer from months of having pain in my arm and some type of sciatica in my back. However, this medicine changed my life. And then at the bottom it says, may cause bleeding, may make you go blind, may make you not be able to hear again, may make you numb, you may have tingling, you may lose your voice, you may lose your limb, you may cause death. Please make sure you consult your doctor before you take this medication. That's what they're trying to say. It should have been some type of warning that this mitigating apparatus may not work in certain situations, may not pick up in certain situations. Defendant Daimler held out the 2021 Freightliner safety system, including the Detroit Assurance 5.0, as, quote, the ultimate in safety, and advertised that the ABA5 technology mitigates potential collision and can identify moving stationary vehicles in the truck's path. Daimler marketed and sold this product to consumers, and in doing so, instructed consumers that it was imperative that they, quote, accept and put their, quote, trust in the Detroit Assurance 5.0 collision mitigation system. Daimler knew or should have known that these claims were not accurate or safe, and that users of the 2021 Freightliner Cascadia equipped with Detroit Assurance 5.0 would not recognize the danger posed by the product. Daimler knew or should have known that drivers like defendant Wilkinson and companies like CRST would place their trust in Daimler and rely on the Detroit Assurance 5.0 system to work as advertised, warn them of stationary objects like the disabled Sprinter van, and apply partial and full braking to prevent or mitigate collisions like the March 1st, 2025 collision. Daimler knew or should have known that drivers like defendant Wilkinson and companies like CRST would rely on the Detroit Assurance 5.0 collision mitigation system to warn them of stationary vehicles and otherwise perform as it was marketed and advertised. Daimler's failure to warn consumers and purchasers of problems it knew about and defects of Detroit Assurance 5.0, and failure to inform consumers and purchasers that the 2021 Freightliner safety system would not detect vehicles like the disabled Sprinter van in the condition it was in March 1st, 2025, along with the acts and omissions of other defendants, proximately caused the injuries, damages, and losses that plaintiffs have suffered, as well as the death of Angie Stone. So that is the crux of that claim. Thank you so much, Christine said. Thank you so much, Pammy Pam. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. What else did I miss here? D Queen said pre-inspection is a must before it hits the road. Any malfunctions have to be reported, so the company may put it on the driver if he did not report it. Very interesting. Thank you so much, D Queen, for the comment and the super chat. HFG, thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate that. Maryland Girl for Life, thank you for gifting 5 membership. Thank you, Brown Southern Girl, for becoming a member. Thank you, Joey, for becoming a member. I appreciate you. And thank you, Just Ask Char, again, for being a member for 15 months. But yeah, this is very, very heart-wrenching and very, very sad. Trying to move along as much as possible. I know this gets a little dry and boring, but I want you all to see all of the counts that they are alleging. So you have negligence, you have failure to warn, and you have liability, product liability claims in this lawsuit. All right. So then you got strict product liability and negligence as to defendant Detroit Diesel. So y'all pretty much know what that's about. They're the ones that designed this system that allegedly is supposed to warn you about objects in the road and even partially brake or fully brake if you don't pay any attention when they give you the heads up. And that it wasn't safe. You should have known it was safe. And because of that, it was the proximate cause of the injuries and the death of Angie Stone and the injuries of Sheila Hopkins. They also had a failure to warn as well for defendant Detroit Diesel. And count 8 is against Joseph Robinson. Good to go. That's why it threw me off in the beginning. I was like, so they not going to sue the guy who actually was driving the Sprinter? Because when I saw in the beginning, they were saying it wasn't what really caused the serious injuries. I didn't understand how what would have happened is they probably would have pointed, if they didn't put the guy that drove the Sprinter into this lawsuit, somebody would have pointed to him as one of them defendants and saying, it wasn't us, it was him. But he's towards the end of the lawsuit, and I was wondering, like, why isn't he in this lawsuit? Apparently he is in the lawsuit. So Abby said, extremely sad and preventable. May justice prevail. Yes, Danny IRL. His eyes are the first line of defense beyond any system. Yeah, I think any system that's supposed to assist, but it's not supposed to take over. Any system that you have is meant, like, even when you use the cameras, I think in your cars, when you back up, they assist you, but how many still look at them little mirrors? I still turn around every now and then. Like, you still want to make sure, or like they're supposed to beep when you too close to a car. Nope, I still stop a little bit even before the beeps happen. You know, sometimes you still have to use, because before any of this technology came out, this is how we operated. We had to as a reasonable, prudent person. That's how we had to drive on these roads and look out for ourselves and look out for other people. And when you are a truck driver, you have a more standards that you have to be governed by, because they have their own rules and laws and regulations and protocols when you are a truck driver. So yeah, make sure y'all hit this like button, please. We're getting down to the wire. Count 8 is defendant Joseph Robinson. Good to go. And executive elite's negligence. Defendant Joseph Robinson, good to go, and or executive elite owned the Mercedes Sprinter van that defendant Carter was driving at the time of the initial collision. These defendants are also common carriers. Defendant Robinson, good to go, and or executive elite had a business relationship with defendant Carter, whereby they had an agreement to share revenue from Carter's use of the Sprinter van to transport passengers for compensation, such that all these defendants were engaged in joint enterprise and or agency relationship with defendant Carter. Defendants Robinson, Good to Go, and Executive Elite are liable under the doctrine of respondent superior for the tortuous acts and omissions of their agents, employees, servants, or individuals with whom they are in joint enterprise. These acts and omissions include, but are not limited to, the acts and omissions committed by Defendant Carter on March 1st, 2025. Defendant Robinson, Good to Go, and Executive Elite negligently entrusted the Mercedes Sprinter van to Carter, who was unfit to operate the Sprinter van and who had no insurance despite using the van to transport passengers for compensation. If you were in my membership, I was like, I wonder if this guy even has insurance. Remember, I asked that question in there. I said, there's so many intricacies when it comes to a lot of this that you have to be in there and do the research to know the information. So we were kind of brainstorming in the membership on what went wrong and why they're focusing more on one set of people than another set of people. And one of the things I said was, we don't even know if he had insurance or not, which will cover this, because he probably doesn't have the assets to be covering like the medical situation, funeral costs, or any of that stuff. So interesting. Defendant Robinson, Good to Go, and or Executive Lead are common carriers of passengers who negligently selected, hired, qualified, retained, or trained carded. As a direct and proximate result of the foregoing breaches of duties, Angie Stones suffered the losses and injuries noted herein, consciously suffered physical and mental pain, and ultimately died. As a direct and proximate result of the foregoing breaches of duty, Sheila Hopkins suffered the losses and injuries noted herein, alone or in conjunction with the negligence of the other defendant. Defendants Robinson, Good to Go, and or Executive Elite's negligence possibly caused Angie Stone's death and the injuries and damages to the plaintiff. Count 9, attorney fees and litigation expenses. Defendants have acted in bad faith, have been stubbornly litigious, and have caused plaintiffs unnecessary trouble and expense, such that plaintiff seeks to recover from defendants all costs of litigation, including attorney fees and expenses. So maybe they were trying to settle it and they were like, no, we not. Angie Stone, the damages claimed by plaintiffs were approximately caused by the torturous acts and omissions of defendants, for which they are liable jointly and severally as a direct result of the defendant's negligence, acts, and omissions. Angie Stone suffered severe personal injuries, conscious pain and suffering, shock, fright, and terror, and ultimately death. Plaintiffs claim and seek all damages available at law for the wrongful death of Angie Stone. Plaintiff Michael Archer II, as the administrator of the estate of Angie Stone, claims all compensatory damages suffered by Angie Stone, for which her estate is entitled to recover, including but not limited to pre-impact and post-impact shock, fright, and terror that Angie Stone experienced prior to and during the subject collisions. All components of the mental and physical pain and suffering and general damages endured by Angie Stone. All emergency transportation expenses, medical bills, funeral and burial expenses for Angie Stone. Punitive damages to punish, penalize, and or deter the defendants. Attorney fees and litigation expenses and all other damages recoverable by law. As to Ms. Sheila Hopkins, as a direct result of defendants' negligent acts and omissions, Sheila Hopkins suffered severe personal injuries, pain and suffering, shock, fright, and terror, and ongoing physical, mental, and emotional pain and trauma. Plaintiff Sheila Hopkins claims all damages for which she is entitled to recover, including but not limited to pre-impact and post-impact shock, fright, and terror that Sheila Hopkins experienced prior to and during the subject collision. All components of the mental and physical pain and suffering and general damages endured by Sheila Hopkins. All past and future medical bills for Sheila Hopkins for treatment related to the subject collision. Punitive damages to punish, penalize, and or deter defendants. Attorney fees and litigation expenses and all other damages recoverable by law. Wherefore, plaintiff prays for the following relief: that summons issue requiring the defendant to appear as provided by law to answer this complaint. The plaintiffs have and recover all damages for all losses compensable as set forth above. The defendants be held liable for plaintiff's damages jointly and severally. that the court award and order punitive damages against the defendants, that all attorney fees, expenses, and costs be cast against the defendants, that service be had on the defendant as provided by law, and for such other further relief as the court deems just and proper. So that is the lawsuit that was filed in connection to the death of Angie Stone. Like I said, I figured that printer, the sprinter guy, I was like, they're not focusing on him at all. And that's further down. They kind of threw him in there further down, and you see how quick it was. It was like 2 pages, but they were very detailed at these big companies that clearly got a couple of dollars. Okay, so that is what the focus was on in his complaint, and to say he did not have insurance, so he probably was not under their insurance, and it was probably similar to like when we go to rental companies and they say, "Do you have your insurance? Who do you have insurance with?" Oh, State Farm. Okay, because they're allegedly supposed to cover you if you have any issues. So it looks like they are alleging that there was no insurance, and they negligently hired somebody who didn't have insurance. So that piece of it is going to be very, very interesting on how that comes out, as far as making them a joint enterprise. As to the negligence, I don't know. But they did give him, he ended up with a negligence claim as well. I don't think I read that one. Hold on. So he did have a negligence claim. I might have went down that too fast. So Lethal Carter, this is his negligence claim. Defendant Carter was hired to transport Angie Stone, and okay, yeah, he was the carrier of passengers. He had a duty to operate the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van. He was driving in a safe and prudent manner so as not to endanger the lives and welfare of his passengers, including Angie Stone and Sheila Hopkins, and the motoring public. The duty included keep a proper lookout while driving, paying proper attention, remaining alert, and operating the Sprinter van prudently and in accordance with the conditions of the roadway and all traffic laws and regulation. Defendant Carter breached his duties and is liable for his tortious acts and omission, which include but are not limited to violating the rules of the road, failing to operate the Sprinter with due care, failing to operate a Sprinter van in a safe and prudent manner, failing to keep a proper lookout or pay attention to the roadway, failing to use ordinary and extraordinary care under the circumstances to avoid the collision, and other acts of negligence to be revealed during discovery. And then they go on, like I said, with respondent superior by basically saying he was an agent employee of these individuals that own this Sprinter van, and it has that portion. Defendants Robinson, Good to Go, and or Executive Elite negligently entrusted the Mercedes Sprinter van to Carter, who was unfit to operate the Sprinter van and who had no insurance, despite using the van to transport passengers for compensation. I wonder if he even really worked for them. I don't know. It's going to be interesting how they tie this together. But again, this is another case on our radar. Condolences to Angie Stone's family. This was tragic. It was shocking to the public. And I know it's devastating to the family. And to hear the facts of how your loved one died, conscious pain and suffering, it was very traumatic and very painful. And hopefully one of these insurance companies gives and just pay. But they did put anybody that could potentially be liable, they put in this lawsuit. Will some of them probably get out? Probably. But hopefully somebody sticks in there, aside from the Sprinter driver who ain't got insurance, because you can't get nothing from somebody for real that don't have insurance. You can try to put some little liens on stuff. You can try to get something to garnish some wages. But if it's no wages to garnish, then it's nothing there. So some people are uncollectible. So these companies being tied in is to get some type of compensation for it. So yeah. See, I talked about that in the beginning. I was like, yeah, they was looking side eye at some of the stuff. Club Tay Tay came in. She was in the process of trying to get her master's. I don't trust none of this. I don't know. It seems like it may be just a freak accident that occurred, unless you're trying to say the Sprinter driver, but dang, he almost would have tried to take his own self out if that was the case. Well, it's me. We about done, honey. Thank you though for coming on in. Yeah, it's horrible. This might bankrupt CRST because their insurance likely won't pay. Yeah, and then the insurance companies, if they feel like, if the insurance companies, well, so in insurance policies, typically they have where they defend you if you have a policy with them. So most policies will have, if you get into auto accidents, they do defend you. So you're not going to have to pay for lawyers. However, there are certain incidents where they don't pay if there is a payout. Sometimes they'll defend you, but they don't have to pay if you're found liable. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting if it's not covered under the policy, or if they find some way to rescind your policy. Because, like, for instance, with the Sprinter, like, we don't know all of the stuff around that, but we'll see how it goes. She deserves something from somebody. I don't care who it is. Y'all could do any, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a tiger by his toe. I don't care what y'all do. You can pull straws. You can roll the dice. You can do heads or tails. We don't care. Give this family what they deserve. Okay? This should have never happened. And it's unfortunate. And we can get back to the whole situation of she shouldn't have been out here on the road like that anyway. She shouldn't be having to work like that. And she's been in the game, and she is one of our legends. She shouldn't have been out here working as hard as she had to work just so she can eat and feed her family, like she was saying. And she has some health challenges, and it's very heartbreaking that you're in the hospital, you have some dire health challenges, you overcome it, but as soon as you get on the brink of amends, you go out and you got to do shows because you got to eat, and then this happens and it takes your life. Tragic all the way around. We'll definitely be praying for the family. And thank you guys again for watching. Thank you for all of the support, the super chats. Please make sure you hit the like button on the way in or on the way out if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And then also, if you are a member or just became a member, you can go into the membership and watch the video from today. We talked a little bit about Angie Stone. We talked about Jaguar Wright. And we talked about David E. Taylor. And then you'll see when I called the lady for prayer. I didn't think she was going to answer, but she answered. So anyway, until next time, you guys, I'm not going to take up any more of your Friday and your family's Fridays from you. So I'm going to holler at y'all next time.